A young outcast, Ryan, transforms into Lillian, defying a painful past to embrace her true self. Shunned by family, she finds solace in Emily's friendship and a job at Helen's flower shop. A chance encounter with her estranged parents ignites old wounds, but a bold plan seeks to reclaim her power. As Lillian navigates love, loss, and a shocking family secret, she uncovers a tragic truth about her uncle, Sally. With Ethan's support, she fights for justice and builds a new life. Her journey tests courage, identity, and forgiveness in a world that's not always kind. Will Lillian find peace and love, or will her past define her? Stay with us to discover how her story ends. I was a lanky, bookish kid, always on the fringes, never quite meshing with the popular crowd. My sharp mind kept most at a distance, leaving me solitary but unbothered. My only escape, my secret refuge, was the rare chance to slip into a dress and feel like myself. I knew the risks my mom once caught me, told my dad, and he unleashed a fury that left me bruised and hollow. After that, Mom barely spoke to me, and Dad had a knack for cutting nicknames that stung. School was a wasteland of isolation, home a silent prison, and with no friends to lean on, I felt my grip on reality slipping. The faint attention Mom occasionally tossed my way was just enough to keep me from breaking. At 18, Dad didn't hesitate to kick me out, hurling an old dress at me as a final jab. I stuffed my life into my beat-up car and drove off. No destination, no job, no family, just a few $100 and a fraying sense of hope. 4 hours later, I stopped in a small city in Ohio, crashing in my car for days before renting a dingy room with a shared bathroom. In time, I landed a job delivering flowers for a shop owned by an older woman named Helen. She kept her distance, content as long as I did my work. The pay covered my rent, and eventually, I saved enough to move into a tiny apartment, furnishing it with secondhand finds. The only thing my parents let me take was an old computer they never used. Mom slipped it to me when Dad wasn't looking. Helen and I got along well, and her steady pay kept me afloat. A year in, just after my 19th birthday, she gave me a small raise, enough to finally indulge my quiet longing. I bought a simple skirt, a blouse, some flats, and a bit of makeup small treasures that let me ease the ache of hiding who I was. Life churned on, unchanged on the surface, but those moments dressing as myself were a lifeline. I sent a postcard to my parents with my new address, but no reply ever came. I took it as a sign to let go, to build something new. Helen noticed I wasn't dating and asked about it once or twice, but romance wasn't on my radar, so she let it be. Later, she trusted me to arrange flowers, pairing it with another modest raise, and hired someone else for deliveries. Helen, widowed when I started, began dating again, pulling her away from the shop. That left me with more responsibility and another promotion. My finances and emotions finally steady. My wardrobe grew skirts, blouses, even a pair of heels, and I started taking late-night drives dressed as myself. Heart racing, but exhilarated. Back home, fear had always chained me. Now, I was finding peace. I chose the name Emma at first, then switched to something softer, rarer Lillian. After months of dressing at home, I mustered the courage for a daytime outing, picking a quiet Sunday morning when most folks were at church. My past made me wary, haunted by the thought of someone like Dad seeing through my carefully applied makeup and unleashing their anger. But that Sunday, nothing happened. No stares, no violence, just a small boost of confidence that I could pass as Lillian. I went out every Sunday after until winter's chill set in. As my 20th birthday neared, I planned my boldest step yet. A salon visit. I called a place across town in Columbus, nervous but honest, explaining I was a guy wanting a feminine cut. I braced for mockery, but the woman on the phone just booked me, saying, "Hair's hair." The night before, I spent hours preparing shaving meticulously, soaking in a bubble bath, laying out my outfit. I'd noticed women at the salon near our shop wore casual jeans, so I'd bought a pair of women's jeans to blend in. Come morning, I was up at dawn, heart pounding as I got ready for the day that felt like a turning point. My hips, padded just enough, gave the jeans a natural curve, and a touch of padding below the belt smoothed the line from my waist. I kept my makeup light foundation, a dusting of powder, a subtle sweep of eyeliner, and a soft pink lipstick. Ready, I checked the clock, grabbed my purse, and stepped out. For the first time, I had to pass my neighbor Emily, a girl my age who wasn't striking but always kind. I liked her easy warmth. I didn't glance back as I brushed by her in the hall, unsure if she clocked me. With only 4 units in our wing, 2 housing older couples, she'd likely figure it out. My heart urged me to bolt back inside, but I wouldn't let fear win. She'd seen me, and hiding wouldn't change that. I'd face her eventually, maybe explain. But I hoped she'd let it slide. I slid into my car and drove to the salon in Cincinnati, meeting Claire, the woman I'd spoken to on the phone. I introduced myself as Lillian, and she led me to the back. I thought she was tucking me away, but it was just for a hair wash. With a towel wrapped around my head, she sat me in her chair. My hair had always been a plain ponytail, and I admitted I had no clue what style would suit me. A cascade of hair fell to the floor, sparking a flicker of doubt, but Claire's calm reassurance steadied me. In about 30 minutes, she'd shaped my hair into a soft, curled page boy, with delicate bangs framing my forehead. Staring in the mirror, I felt a rush. It was like she'd woven magic. When Claire suggested booking another appointment, I nodded eagerly. For the first time, I felt truly feminine, like I could maybe sit at a cafe or stroll through a park without feeling exposed. Wanting to bask in the moment, I drove aimlessly through the city, then headed home to slip into my latest find, a sleek navy dress with matching heels. I was floating. Another barrier crossed. Only one challenge remained: getting back into my apartment. I entered the building, climbed the stairs, and turned toward my door, only to find Emily standing there. "Hey," she said, her voice light. "I saw you head out earlier. Being the only girl my age around here, I had to say hi. Love the new hair, it looks amazing. Want to come in?" I could have declined, but I felt pinned, like a moth caught in a web. I nodded, and she opened her door. Once inside, with the door closed, we stood face to face. "You look so different," she said, smiling. "I almost didn't recognize you this morning. Here, let me take your coat. I'll put on some coffee." "You're not upset?" I stammered. "I mean, I'm not exactly—" "Nope. Doesn't matter. Honestly, who'd guess? You're kind of adorable like this." Emily's casual acceptance threw me. I wasn't used to someone shrugging off my secret with such ease. I watched her brew the coffee, then she settled on the couch across from me, her demeanor open and relaxed. "How often do you do this?" she asked, sipping her drink. "Not much," I said. "Just now and then. Why?" She leaned forward, her eyes warm. "Look at me. I'm not exactly turning heads. A bit too curvy, and that's a deal breaker for a lot of guys. But you? That figure, that hair, you're pulling it off." "I'm not into guys, Emily," I said, wanting to be clear. She laughed softly. "Doesn't matter. Keep going out like this, and someone's gonna notice. Trust me." I'd bet on it. Emily shared that her 2 sisters had modeled before settling down with families, and her parents adored all their kids, including her brother. Her calm, steady presence put me at ease, like a quiet harbor after a storm. Something about her felt safe, grounding, and before I knew it, I was unraveling my story, the rejection, the pain, the loneliness. I'd never told anyone, and speaking it aloud felt like shedding a heavy coat. We talked for hours, laughter and stories weaving a bond that felt like the start of a real friendship. Emily's laughter rang out when I recounted the time I barricaded myself in the bathroom, frantically scrubbing off garish red lipstick while my mom hammered on the door. I barely made it to my room, lips raw and pink from the ordeal. She shared her own story, how her sisters had glammed her up for prom, piling on makeup and teasing her hair until she felt, in her words, like a fairy tale queen for one magical night. Sitting there, I should have been a bundle of nerves, but Emily's warmth melted my anxiety. I felt safe, unguarded in a way I hadn't known before. "My brother's performing tonight," she said, eyes bright. "Want to come with me? I'd need to change, but yeah, I'd love to. Got a nice dress? We could get all dolled up for once." "You mean, go like this?" I gestured to myself, still in my jeans and blouse. Absolutely. Maybe I'll score a pity date with you stealing the spotlight. She grinned. I've never. I faltered. What if I mess up? Stop overthinking. I'll swing by at 6. Be ready, dressed to impress, okay? I nodded, caught in her enthusiasm. What's the dress? Navy blue, I said. I didn't push back on her insistence that I go as Lillian, retreating to my apartment with time to spare. I made a quick sandwich, then laid out my best outfit: the navy dress, a cincher to shape my waist, sheer pantyhose, and my prized pearl earrings and necklace. I pulled out my nail kit. I'd dabbled with fake nails before, knowing I could pry them off later. At my small kitchen table, I glued on each nail, trimmed them to a manageable length, and painted them a deep russet red. I waited nearly an hour for the polish to set, then slipped into my bedroom to undress. No need for a shower, but I shaved again, scraping away the sparse stubble I jokingly called a beard. My makeup went on bolder than usual, dramatic eyeshadow, a sharper lip anticipating the dim lights of a nightclub where I hoped I wouldn't stand out too much. I wrestled into the cincher, checked the mirror, and saw a softly feminine silhouette, my hair still holding Claire's perfect style, my makeup the best I'd ever managed. With the pearls in place, a swipe of lipstick, and a spritz of drugstore perfume, I was done. I sank onto the couch, nerves creeping in, nearly convincing myself to bail until Emily's knock jolted me. She looked stunning, a vision in a black dress hugged by a shimmering sequined jacket. Her hair swept into an elegant twist, makeup flawless. I felt clumsy beside her radiance. Ready? She asked. Wow, Emily, you're gorgeous. Thanks. She handed me a sequined jacket, this one a soft blue. Figured if I'm going all out, you should too. Thought you might not have one. I slipped it on, grateful. Thank you. She drove us to a cozy restaurant in downtown Cincinnati, where we lingered over dinner. I finally shared my name Lillian, and she smiled, like it suited me. We caught a few guys glancing our way, but brushed it off, heading to the club to see her brother's show. As we entered, Emily's face lit up, and she waved, grabbing my arm to pull me along. I was too nervous to resist. What are you doing here? She said, beaming at a couple. Turning to me, Lillian, this is my mom and dad. They invited us to sit with them, but Emily had reserved a table, so we settled there instead. Drinks appeared quickly, and when Emily asked, the waiter nodded toward 2 guys across the room. Told you, she teased. Yeah, but relax, Lillian. A drink's just a drink, not a proposal. Enjoy the night. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the stage, revealing a woman whose beauty stole my breath. Her voice, smoky and rich, wove through torch songs and pop ballads, each note sultry and electrifying. She held the stage for over an hour, every moment captivating. The first act had me spellbound, and I leaned toward Emily, curious about when her brother would perform, just as the stunning woman from the stage glided toward our table. Em, you're killing it tonight, she said, her voice warm. You were incredible, Jamie, better than ever, Emily replied. Jamie? I blinked, piecing it together slowly. Jamie, this is Lillian, my neighbor. The club manager approached, explaining he'd set up a larger table so Emily's parents could join us. We crossed the room to settle in together. Jamie, whose stage name was Star, had a second set to perform and slipped away to change. Emily's parents were gracious, their warmth unfazed by their son's radiant femininity or my presence, though I was certain they saw through my carefully crafted appearance. Star returned for her second set, then rejoined us in casual jeans and a soft sweater. Still so effortlessly feminine, I felt a pang of envy. Yet the night was electric, and in a surge of joy, I blurted out how much fun I was having, earning smiles all around. Back at our building, standing by our apartment doors, Emily invited me in, and I was too wired to say no. The moment her door clicked shut, she turned to me. Help me out? Unzip this, please. I tugged the zipper, and with a shrug, her dress pooled at her feet. She grinned, stepping closer, and before I could process, she slid my jacket off and unzipped my dress. In a fluid motion, she unhooked her bra, letting it fall. I'm not staying a virgin forever, Lillian. You in? She asked, eyes playful but direct. No preamble, No hesitation, just her bold certainty. Questions swirled, but I didn't voice them. In a whirlwind of shed clothes, we stripped each other bare and tumbled into her bedroom. It was raw, unexpected, and neither of us seemed prepared for the intensity. Morning found me tangled in her sheets, her warmth against me. I slipped out quietly, gathering my things, and darted to my apartment. After a quick shower, I threw on jeans and a tee, brewed coffee, and set out some pastries before heading back to rouse Emily. She shuffled in, and our shared grins spoke louder than words. Sitting there, I knew I loved dressing as Lillian, but I was certain I loved women Emily most of all. As we locked eyes over coffee, I felt I'd found my person. And later, in my bedroom, we proved it again, lost in each other. Lying there, Emily confessed she'd decided long ago I'd be the one to end her virgin streak, a choice she'd made with clear intent. Her words stung. I'd hoped for something deeper, a spark beyond her plan. Still entwined, she opened up about her family. In high school, Jamie found he could sing, and with practice, a slight lift in his voice mimicked a woman's. Teased at first, he silenced doubters when their mom urged him to enter a contest as a girl, singing in that voice. With his sisters' and mom's help, he won prize money, which led to performing as Star. Over time, Emily said, Jamie grew tired of switching between identities and chose to live as a woman full-time, a decision that boosted his career as his records gained traction. His constant femininity was why their parents were so at ease they understood his truth. I envied that acceptance, wishing I'd had parents like theirs. Emily and I parted that afternoon, and by Monday, I walked into work feeling transformed. Like I'd uncovered vital pieces of myself, all of them bright. Helen wasn't at the shop when I arrived, so I opened up and started my tasks as usual. She appeared around 10, headed straight to her office, and closed the door, a rare move. The morning buzzed with orders, our driver juggling nearly 24 deliveries. Just after lunch, Helen called me into her office. Is there something I should know, Ryan? Something unique? Helen asked, her tone gentle but probing. Not really. What do you mean by unique? I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I was at a club this weekend with my son, and I'm almost certain I saw you there. It was Star's show, that new singer. Were you there? I swear I saw you talking to Star. Her brown eyes locked on mine, warm but unrelenting, caught again. I thought I'd left that fear behind. With Helen's gaze on me, and my job likely on the line, I sighed. Yeah, I was there. I went with Emily, Star's sister, and their parents. They invited me. Why? My son, Ethan, couldn't stop talking about you. He thinks you're adorable and wants to meet you. I snorted. Ethan needs glasses. Me? Adorable? Not even close. I thought you were pretty charming myself, Ryan, Helen said with a smile. Two of us can't be wrong, can we? I stayed silent, unsure how to respond. What should I tell him? What if I say no? Will I get fired? You're not shocked? Fired? Absolutely not. This is personal, not business. I don't care what you do outside work. But you did look lovely. I'll give you that. I'll think it over and let you know, I said, buying time. That night, I spilled everything to Emily, expecting her to tease me. Instead, she pushed me to meet Ethan, saying I'd never feel whole until I faced people like Helen or a guy who saw me as Lillian. She suggested meeting him at the shop neutral ground where I couldn't bolt, and he'd be less likely to cause a scene if he figured me out. Reluctantly, I took her advice, wondering how Helen would react to my terms. To my surprise, she was fine with it, calling it a smart move any woman would make. We set it for Friday morning, with me showing up as Lillian. Helen always wore skirts with blouses and cardigans, so I stopped at a store in Columbus to grab a similar outfit, then booked an early slot with Claire at the salon. Friday dawned, and I was at the salon as Claire unlocked the door. An hour later, I left with my hair flawless, makeup done by her expert hands, and fake nails already in place. I felt as polished as I ever had, though I wondered what Helen would think seeing me in broad daylight. I opened the shop, flipped on the lights, and started prepping when a man I didn't recognize walked in. I'd like to discuss a contract for flower deliveries to my business, he said. The owner will be here soon if you'd like to wait. No time for that. Can you help me? I'd handled contracts before, so I pulled out the forms and jotted down his request. 200 dozen flowers, 3 times a week, for 3 years. Unsure of pricing, I used the current corporate rate sheet, tacking on 15% annually for inflation. He scanned it, asked a few questions, and signed without hesitation. He left just as Helen arrived. Still reeling, I held up the contract. Her eyes widened, and a grin spread across her face. "Do you realize what you've done?" she asked. "Besides making a complete fool of myself?" "No, what?" She waved off my self-doubt. "No, Lillian, you look wonderful. You've just secured a massive profit stream for the shop for the next 3 years. If his hotel loves our work, he'll spread the word, and who knows? We might hit the big leagues." Helen barely mentioned my appearance, just repeating that I looked as wonderful as she'd thought at the club. Ethan arrived at noon, taking Helen and me to lunch. He was polite, charming even, and though I felt a faint spark, I reminded myself I wasn't into guys. It was a pleasant lunch, nice, but nothing more. Later, Helen got a call from the contract guy. He wanted me to visit his hotel to pick the best flowers for different areas. Helen looked at me and said I had no choice. I'd have to go as Lillian, since that's who he'd met. Showing up as Ryan could confuse things and jeopardize the deal. With a reluctant nod, I agreed. When I told Emily, she burst out laughing, saying it was my fault for being too cute. Then, with a playful grin, she helped me out of my clothes. Emily helped me style my hair the next morning, and I slipped into a sharp red skirt suit with a crisp white blouse and black heels. She gave me a nod of approval, and I headed to the hotel in downtown Columbus. The client and I were wrapping up our tour, back in the lobby, when I froze. My parents walked in. Dad's eyes skimmed over me. No flicker of recognition as they checked in. I ducked into the office before they could spot me, heart pounding. A confrontation would have been a nightmare. By the time I returned to the shop, I was a mental mess, racking my brain over why they were in town. Before I left for the day, Helen called me into her office. "You know, most of our customers are women," she began. "They often ask for me directly. And the men who come in? They prefer talking to a woman about flowers, makes them feel more at ease. You've already shown you can handle it, and as assistant manager, you'd need to step up when I'm not here. I think presenting as a woman would put everyone at ease. What do you say?" "Assistant manager?" I echoed, surprised. "With a substantial raise, yes. As a woman?" "Exactly. That's how it started." I agreed to work as Lillian full-time. That evening, Emily was out when I got home, so I kept my outfit on and started cooking dinner, the TV news humming in the background. I nearly missed the doorbell. Peering through the peephole, I saw my mother. Still in my red suit, there was no hiding who I was, but I owed her nothing. A jolt of defiance hit me. Maybe she deserved a shock. I fluffed my hair and opened the door. "Oh, is Ryan here? Ryan?" Her voice faltered. "Come in, Mom," I said, turning as the oven timer beeped. I pulled the roast out, then faced her. Her eyes traced me from head to toe, lingering. "We came to see you, but why bother? You kicked me out, remember? I shouldn't have let you in." "You seem to be doing well," she said, almost grudgingly. "No thanks to you." "Honey, I'm your mother. You can't talk to me like that." "Want a bet? I'm 21. I do what I want. I don't owe you anything, and I don't need your judgment. I've got a great job, real friends. I don't need you or Dad screwing up my life. If you're here to criticize, there's the door. Your father's outside. He wants to see you. Tell him to go to hell. You hate us that much?" "I hate that a bigoted jerk beat me until I could barely stand. He doesn't get another shot. Let him sit out there." "I should go," she said quietly. "I'll tell him you don't want to see him." Just then, Emily walked in. She and Mom locked eyes, tension crackling, but neither spoke as Mom left. The door shut, and I collapsed into sobs, unloading years of pain, the rejection, the cruelty since the day I was caught dressing up. Emily listened, and over dinner, she mused aloud about something so bold it stopped me cold. All the hurt, the torment from my parents, could be turned back on them. I was done with them, but a small jab felt tempting. I leaned in as she outlined her plan. When I agreed, she made 3 calls, one to Star, one to Claire at the salon, and one to the hotel where my parents were staying. Then she mapped out the details. It hinged on shock, my only weapon. Mom had seen me, but Dad hadn't, and he was the root of my anger. His vicious words, taunts, and beatings, meant to fix me, had failed. My success in spite of them fueled me. For once, I'd have the upper hand. In 2 days, I'd be ready. In 2 days, I'd sever the past that haunted me, no matter how Dad reacted. Claire styled my hair into an elegant French twist, weaving in a delicate string of rhinestones. Back home, Star worked her magic. Alone in my apartment, I stood bare as she transformed me, her hands steady and sure. Star's case was a treasure trove, and she began by pulling out a pair of startlingly realistic breast forms, securing them to my chest with adhesive. With deft strokes of specialized makeup, she blended the edges until they looked like a natural part of me. Next came a padded panty, ingeniously designed to sculpt rounder hips, a fuller backside, and a convincingly feminine front. More makeup erased the seams, and suddenly, I was staring at a body that felt like mine in a way I'd never imagined. Star had me wipe off my existing makeup, then shaped my eyebrows into a delicate, slightly arched curve. When she finished, I caught my reflection in a small mirror and froze. I'd never looked this radiant. To perfect what Star called the ultimate silhouette, she laced me into a white corset, pulling the strings until I could barely breathe before loosening them just enough for comfort. Satin white panties followed, then sheer stockings clipped to the corset's garters. I lifted Star's dress from its hanger, a luminous white sheath, faintly translucent, with a daringly low back and a deep neckline that showcased my new curves. The fabric clung to me like a second skin, every movement accentuating my shape. Sequined white heels, a rhinestone choker, and bold red lipstick completed the look, transforming me into someone unrecognizable, yet utterly myself. Emily poked her head in. "Is she ready?" "Almost," Star said. "Lillian and I need a moment." She sat on the bed, her eyes serious. "Lillian, I don't fully agree with this plan. They hurt you, abandoned you in your eyes. I get it. But is this the way? Are you so set on burning every bridge with them?" "You had a family who lifted you up, Star," I said, my voice steady. "All I got were cruel names and fists. They fed me, gave me a roof, but nothing more. For the first time, I feel like I belong, Emily. You, Helen, you're my family now. You care about me, which is more than my parents ever did. You don't know what it's like to be invisible in a crowd, Star. I do, and I'm done with it. I need this." "Emily says you're working as a woman now," Star said softly. "Let me gift you these, the breast forms, the panty. A welcome to your new life." My eyes welled up, but Star waved off my tears, calling Emily in. "She's ready." Turning to me, she added, "Lillian, you're stunning. Ethan's going to be floored." "I couldn't have done this without you," I said, gratitude swelling. Star opened the door, and in walked my date Ethan, Helen's son. His eyes widened, then softened into a smile. I grabbed my clutch, letting him guide me by the arm to his car. At the restaurant, I added a sway to my step, feeling every gaze, men and women alike, drawn to me in that dress. Ethan's grip on my arm was firm as we reached the reserved table. My father's stare hit me first, his eyes narrowing as we approached. Ethan made introductions, and we sat, Dad directly across from me. I leaned into my role, hoping he'd choke on the sight of me. "You look—" Dad started. "She's breathtaking, and you know it," Mom cut in, placing a hand on my arm. I shifted closer to Ethan, brushing her off. "We came to see if we could be a family again. We know we messed up, but—" "A family?" I scoffed. "We were never a family. It was you two and everyone else. How many clubs did you join, Mom? How many friends did you hang out with?" "None." "Not many? How often did you stand by while he called me those vile names or hit me for no reason?" "Now you want to play family? How long do you think that lie would hold?" I turned to Dad. "I'm a woman now, and nothing, not even you, can change that. I don't believe you mean a word of this. You were supposed to protect me, but you didn't. Why would I go back to that?" "Your father has terminal cancer," Mom said quietly. Sorry to hear that, Dad, I said, voice flat. Don't you want to know how long I have? Not really. You hate me that much? Words can't cover it. You never once tried to hear me out, I said, my voice cold. So no, I don't need to know. You're stunning in that dress. You wore it to flaunt yourself. I could see right through it when you walked in, Dad said, his tone sharp. Exactly. Knowing how much you love staring, I thought I'd give you something to look at, I shot back, gesturing to my chest. That's cruel, Ryan, Mom snapped. It's not Ryan anymore. It's Lillian. I downed my wine in one gulp and asked Ethan to get another, my gaze boring into Dad's. His face had the hollow, weathered look of a man nearing the end, but any affection I'd once held for him had withered years ago. Maybe, after he was gone, Mom and I could find some kind of connection, but not while he was still here. I needed air, even just a moment's escape, so I excused myself to the ladies' room. Mom stood as I did. I'll come with you, she said. In the readest room, we faced each other, the air thick with unspoken words. He doesn't want to die knowing you hate him, sweetheart, she said softly. It's not hate, Mom. I just don't care. Maybe after he's gone, you and I could try. But not with him around. I can't do that. Are you and Ethan? Ethan's here to keep Dad in check, nothing more. I see. No, you don't. You let Dad bully you into silence. You never asked me what was going on or why. Being a scrawny nerd in school was bad enough. But you? You stood by every time he tried to beat my feelings out of me. All because I got caught once and you told him every detail, didn't you? 3.5 years of that hell. And the day after graduation, you watched him throw me out. Do you know what it's like to sleep in your car? Or live in a roach-infested room with a shared bathroom? I got lucky with my job, built a life from nothing, now 3 years after you discarded me. You want back in? I straightened, meeting her eyes. As long as Dad's around, no way. Maybe after he's gone, we could try if you accept me as I am. You're so angry, Lillian. I'd hoped, but it doesn't matter. You've made it clear. You have to understand why. No, Mom, I don't. It's simple. You either love me as I am, or we're done talking. I guess not, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It took every ounce of courage to say those words to them both. 3 years of torment, followed by 3 years of scraping by, had forged my resentment into something unyielding. My teenage years were a wasteland awkward, acne-riddled, too smart for my own good. With no dates, no real friends, barred from clubs or activities. My longing to dress as a girl, stifled by fear and shame, only deepened my isolation in a home ruled by a tyrant who ignored me unless he was hurling insults or worse. I had no refuge, no safety, just the constant ache of mental and physical wounds. They became my companions, feeding my anger until the day I was cast out. In a strange way, that was a gift. It let me set my own rules. Over time, my fury cooled into a quiet resolve to start over. I became Lillian. Star's transformation made me striking, but the everyday me was simpler. A woman who lived inwardly until a chain of events led me to this moment, standing in a restroom, laying bare my truth, not theirs, mine. It was the only truth that mattered. Emily awakened me to physical connection, a shared shedding of our past burdens that felt like freedom. Her sisters were models, her brother a breathtaking performer, and she often felt like the overlooked one, though I knew she could shine when she chose to. Through her, I shed my fear of being seen as a man who dressed as a woman, embracing Lillian with a confidence I'd never known. Emily and I were each other's lifeline, pulling one another from the shadows of our inner struggles to become who we were destined to be. Emily's beauty ran deep, caring, vibrant, sharp, tender, and at times effortlessly glamorous. But she couldn't see it, blinded by the radiance of her sisters and, painfully, her brother's stunning presence. To me, her ability to shift from unassuming to breathtaking, paired with her warmth, made her extraordinary. She was the one who guided me to a place of serenity, where I could embrace Lillian without fear of scorn or rejection. We needed each other, two souls tossed together by fate to untangle our burdens, hers, the weight of envy, mine, the yearning to live as a woman. I touched up my lipstick, pushed open the restroom door, and returned to the table. My parents were gone. Only Ethan remained, his expression soft. "They left as soon as your mom came back," he said. "Take me home, Ethan, please." He walked me to my door, his arm steady around my waist. He pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek, waiting until I stepped inside. Emily was waiting, eager for the night's details. As she unzipped my dress, helping me slip out of it, she paused. "Do you see how incredible you look? How alluring you are?" "Emily, please. I'm just a guy who—" She grabbed my arm, turning me to face the full-length mirror. "Look! Do you see what I see? Do you know what I'd give for a figure like that?" Spinning me to face her, she continued, "Lillian, listen to me. I love you, you know that. What we shared was beautiful, something I never thought I'd find. But deep down, where it matters, you're a woman. We both know it. No matter what's under all this, you've always been the woman standing here. I don't want to hear another word otherwise. Now that you're working as a woman, how long can we keep this up? How long before someone like Ethan sweeps you away?" "It's not like that, Emily. This is reality, Lillian, not some dream. I can handle you dressing up sometimes, maybe more. But you're living as a woman now. That changes everything. What if I got pregnant? Would the dad look like the mom?" Her voice softened. "You'll always be my closest friend that's forever. But we can't be lovers anymore. We'll be girlfriends, not partners. I can't change who I am, and you can't change who you are. Let's part as friends, okay?" Words failed me. Emily wrapped her arms around my cinched waist, her hair brushing my back, the intimate warmth of true friendship enveloping me. She'd pulled me from rage into light, and now she was setting me free to chase a deeper truth, if it existed. She loosened the corset's laces, gave me a playful pat, and left for her apartment. Alone, I stared at my reflection as I undressed, the weight of the night sinking in. I'd severed ties with my family and lost my dearest friend, all in one evening. By the time I was down to the padded panties, tears came quiet sobs that dredged up the pain of rejection I'd buried. Seeing my parents had ripped those wounds open. Was being Lillian worth it? Was the emotional wreckage worth this dream? 21 years of longing to be a woman had come true, yet I was shattered. When the doorbell rang, I didn't care who saw me. I opened it to find my mother. "Put on a robe, sweetheart. We need to talk." I slipped into the bedroom and donned the delicate peignoir Star had left, just in case. Mom sat at the table, her face weary. "I was wrong for what I did or didn't do. We had a son, not a daughter, and we wanted it that way. As our only child, we dreamed you'd be a father, give us grandchildren. By becoming a woman, unable to bear children, that dream died. Your father did terrible things, and he doesn't blame you for hating him. He's so sorry, Lillian. You can't imagine." I paused, gathering my thoughts. This was about grandchildren? What about me? I got caught once and paid for it every day until you threw me out. You think I'd let him near any kids I might have after what he did to me? He wants to see you, honey. He's fading fast, and he wants to speak with you, alone, Mom said, her voice heavy. "Not without Ethan there," I replied firmly. "Your father can barely stand. You'll be safe, Lillian. Ethan comes or I don't go." End of story. "Tomorrow at noon, then?" "I'll be at the hotel restaurant at noon." Mom left, and I scrubbed off my makeup before collapsing into bed, sleep fractured by restless thoughts. In the morning, I called Ethan, who confirmed he'd be there, then rang Helen to say I'd miss work for a family matter. I chose a simple knee-length skirt, a light sweater, and low heels, my hair falling in its soft pageboy, makeup understated but polished. At the hotel entrance, Ethan met me, taking my hand as we walked in. Dad sat alone at a corner table, looking frail. Ethan settled at the bar while I approached, pausing before Dad gestured for me to sit. "You were radiant last night," he said quietly. I stayed silent. "Your mom says you don't hate me. That's something. I don't want to leave this world thinking you do." "It's not hate," I said. "It's indifference. I was wrong," he admitted, his voice thin. "I thought, it doesn't matter now. I misjudged you, and I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't erase it, Dad. I carry those scars every day. I fight to be who I am, and no apology changes that. You thought names and fists would mold me into your vision. It didn't work. I'm me, always was. All you did was make me erase you. I've built a life, and I won't let you disrupt it. I don't wish you pain, but that's as far as it goes. You and that young man at the bar. Ethan's a friend. Someday, he said, almost whispering, you'll have kids, and you'll face tough choices, ones that hurt everyone. Maybe then you'll understand. If I have kids, I won't shame or beat them. I'll ask how they feel, what they want, and decide from there. They'll know I cared enough to listen something you never gave me. After I'm gone, open this, he said, sliding an envelope across the table. Not before. I don't want anything from you. I know, but this is different. Take it. Promise me you'll wait. I sighed, tucking the envelope into my purse, then stood, meeting his gaze. His gray eyes, watery and lined with regret, held mine. I said nothing more, walked to Ethan, took his hand, and we left. Back at my apartment, the moment I faced him, I broke down, tears streaming. Ethan pulled me close, stroking my hair as I sobbed like a child. I couldn't recall my parents ever holding me like that, especially after they found me out. When I looked up, he brushed stray hairs from my face, a faint smile on his lips. Your mascara's running. I don't wear mascara. I'd stab my eye out. Something black streaking down your face, Lillian. Eyeliner, I muttered. You're beautiful, you know that? I'm a mess, Ethan. Then you need someone to help you find your balance again. Like you? Exactly like me. But you know I'm not. I can't. I'll always be here, Lillian. As your friend, or maybe more. Always. He kissed my cheek, flashed a soft smile, and left. Alone, my mind spun Mom, Dad, Ethan, Emily, Helen, all colliding in a chaotic swirl. I needed Emily, but she wasn't home. I craved someone to hold me, to say they loved me, to affirm that being a woman was my truth. My parents were out of the question. Emily had drawn her line as friends. Helen was my boss, which left Ethan. Unearthing my identity had been a grueling path: pain, anger, love, hate, friendships, and lovers intertwined. In my quest to know myself, I'd come full circle, still yearning for someone to love me fiercely. Ethan. I rushed to the window, flung it open to call him back, but he was gone. A shower did nothing to wash away the ache. I slumped on the couch, the TV droning some forgettable show, my mind replaying the day's emotional storm. Emily stopped by that evening, and we sank into a raw, heart-to-heart talk, just two women unraveling their truths. I poured out everything: how Ethan's embrace had steadied me, a quiet anchor in my chaos. Her eyes widened as I spoke, and she listened with a stillness that made me feel seen. It was late when she left, her words lingering like a melody I couldn't shake. Work swept me up in the days that followed, each one blurring into the next. Ethan called daily, his voice a steady pulse, and I began to wonder if Emily was right. Maybe there was something real there. A month after my last encounter with Dad, word came that he'd passed. That night, I sat alone and opened the envelope he'd given me. Inside were 3 photos and a letter. Each image showed a young girl, carefree in a summer dress, her smile bright and unburdened. Lillian, the girl in the photos, is my brother Henry, about 14. He loved dressing up, and it was fine at home. But he went to the corner store once, and someone clocked him as a boy in a dress. They beat him to death. His name was Sally. Maybe now you'll understand. Dad. The girl Henry had dark hair and pigtails, her joy radiating from the faded images. My uncle, killed for the same unstoppable urge I knew too well, the need to be true to himself. The weight of it hit me. Dad's rage, his violence, stemmed from fear, a twisted attempt to shield me from Henry's fate. I sat frozen, the letter trembling in my hands. His cruelty made sense now, but it didn't erase the scars. Questions swirled, but he was gone, buried with only Mom to mourn him. Did she know about Henry? 2 days later, I called her, probing for answers. She knew the story, but not the details, offering only that my grandmother might know more. Grandmother? I'd never heard of her, never met her. I arranged a week's vacation, packed a bag, and drove to Mom's house in a quiet Cleveland suburb. 2 days after that, I stood in a nursing home before a frail woman, her eyes cloudy but kind. The nurse warned she'd just taken her meds and might be lucid for an hour. I listened as she recounted how Henry had confessed his desire to be a girl. After a family debate, they agreed he could dress at home but nowhere else. Dad was supposed to handle the grocery run that week, but a date got in the way, so he sent Sally instead. That choice cost her life. The old woman said Dad carried the guilt like a stone, blaming himself for years. Mom sat nearby, silent, as the woman asked who I was. I glanced at Mom, then said, "I'm your granddaughter, Lillian." She smiled, her mind already slipping, and a nurse wheeled her away. We left quietly. Back at Mom's, we pieced together the story, layering it over Dad's reaction to me. Forgiveness felt out of reach, but understanding softened the edges of my anger. We agreed to try rebuilding as mother and daughter, a fragile start. For the first time in years, I hugged her, her familiar scent warm, like lavender and home wrapping around me. The next day, I drove back to Columbus, booked a salon appointment with Claire, and called Ethan. After my hair was styled, I slipped into a sleek dress, ready to claim my place as Lillian. When Ethan arrived, his eyes lit up, and I let him pull me close, proving to myself that this was right. The years of shame and pain began to fade as Ethan showed me I was wanted not just as Lillian, but as a person, a friend. Mom and I worked to mend our bond, a slow dance of forgetting harsh words and old wounds. It wasn't easy, but we both wanted it to work. Ethan remained my rock, while Emily, now smitten with a guy named Lucas, became my confidant, our secrets shared over coffee and laughter. My life felt close to complete, but Dad's rejection still lingered, a faint shadow. Maybe one day I'd let it go, fully embracing myself as a woman, a daughter, someone Mom could take pride in, someone I could believe in. But the story didn't end there. A week after my visit to Mom, I found a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. It was a woman named Clara, claiming to be Henry's best friend from their teenage years. She'd heard about Dad's passing through Mom and wanted to meet me. Curiosity, mixed with a need to know more about Henry, pulled me to a small cafe in Cincinnati where Clara waited. She was in her late 60s with sharp eyes and a warm smile, and she carried a worn photo album. Over coffee, she opened it to pictures of Henry Sally laughing in dresses, posing with Clara at a park, their faces glowing with youth. He was fearless at home, Clara said, but so careful outside. He just wanted to be himself. She told me how Henry's death shattered their small circle, how Dad withdrew, consumed by guilt. Clara had kept Sally's memory alive, even writing letters to her over the years, as if she were still there. Then Clara slid a small box across the table. "Henry gave this to me before everything. He said it was for someone who'd understand him someday. I think that's you." Inside was a delicate silver locket, engraved with an S. I opened it to find a tiny photo of Sally, her smile mirroring the ones in Dad's pictures. My throat tightened. Clara's eyes softened. "He'd be proud of you, Lillian. You're living the life he couldn't." That locket became my talisman, worn close to my heart. It wasn't just Henry's, it was a bridge to a past I'd never known, a reminder that my fight wasn't solitary. I started researching, digging into records and old news clippings about Henry's death in 1968. The details were scarce, the case unsolved, dismissed as a tragic incident, but I couldn't let it rest. With Emily's help, I tracked down a retired detective who'd worked the case. He was reluctant at first, but my persistence and the locket convinced him to share what he remembered. The attack wasn't random. It was a group of local boys, fueled by prejudice, who'd targeted Henry after spotting him at the store. No one was ever charged. The detective's voice cracked as he admitted he'd failed Sally, haunted by the case his whole career. The injustice burned. I couldn't change the past, but I could honor Henry. I started a blog, Sally's Light, sharing his story and others like ours, connecting with a community of people who'd faced similar struggles. The response was overwhelming. Letters, emails, and comments poured in, each one a thread in a tapestry of resilience. One reader, A lawyer named Mia offered to help me petition for a cold case review of Henry's murder. It was a long shot, but I said yes, driven by a need to give Sally the justice she'd been denied. Meanwhile, Ethan and I grew closer, our bond deepening beyond friendship. One evening, as we walked along the Ohio River, the locket glinting at my throat, he stopped and took my hands. "Lillian, I see all of you, every part, every fight, every dream. I want to be by your side, whatever comes next." His words cracked something open in me, and I kissed him, the river's current mirroring the rush in my chest. It wasn't just love. It was trust, a promise to face the world together. Mom joined my efforts, attending a memorial I organized for Henry in Cleveland, where we laid flowers at the site of the old corner store, now a vacant lot. She spoke, her voice trembling, about learning to love me as Lillian, about regretting her silence. The crowd, Clara, Emily, Lucas, Ethan, and strangers, moved by Sally's story, listened in silence, a shared moment of healing. The case review gained traction, with Mia uncovering new leads, including a witness who'd been too scared to speak in '68. It wasn't closure yet, but it was hope. Work at the shop thrived, too. Helen promoted me to manager, and we expanded, supplying flowers to hotels across Ohio. I hired a young trans woman, Zoe, who reminded me of myself at 18 and mentored her, watching her confidence bloom. Emily and Lucas got engaged, and she asked me to be her maid of honor, a role I accepted with tears and laughter. Through it all, the locket stayed with me, a reminder of Henry's courage and my own. One night, alone in my apartment, I sat with Dad's letter and Henry's photos. The anger I'd clung to had faded, replaced by a quiet understanding. Dad's fear had twisted him, but his final act giving me Sally's story was his way of reaching out. I didn't forgive him entirely, but I let go of the hate, choosing to carry Henry's light instead. I wrote a post for the blog, titled, "For Sally, for Me," pouring out my journey from isolation to purpose. It went viral, shared thousands of times, and led to a speaking invitation at a national trans rights conference in 2025. Standing on that stage, locket gleaming, I told my story, Henry's, Sally's, and mine. The audience rose, their applause a wave of affirmation. Ethan waited in the wings, Mom in the front row, Emily beaming beside Lucas. I was Lillian, fully, fiercely myself, a woman, a daughter, a friend, a fighter. The stain of Dad's denial was gone, not because I erased it, but because I'd built something brighter. Sally's light, and mine, would keep burning, illuminating paths for others. And as I stepped off the stage, Ethan's hand in mine, I knew I was whole.